Is it recorded now? Yeah, I have started the recording. Can you see my slides, guys? And on your screens?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I just before recording this class, I just briefed you about how delicate the system of this coagulability and um, remaining this maintaining of the liquid form of the blood. So that is all done by basically the main hero in this whole picture is platelet. Okay, and you learned in the previous three classes with Durga Madam in anticoagulants is all those coagulation cascade, and it didn't involve, if you remember, it didn't involve platelets at all. Okay, it was all about active and inactive clotting factors, if you remember, and the drugs, if you remember, were basically two major drugs, heparin and warfarin. Do you remember those drugs, guys? Are you hearing me?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Okay. So you know
Yes,
that.
sir.
Okay. Okay. Heparin and warfarin, they have been talked about. So and you know that these heparin and warfarins are basically not used for coronary artery disease. Okay, they are basically for venous thrombosis. You know that from the previous classes that these are given for patients basically who are bedridden. Okay, thrombophlebitis, bedridden to prevent embolism because of the immobile limbs or anything like that. Okay, so because of immobile limbs, there will be slow moving bloods, and there is the chance of clotting inside the blood vessels. And to prevent that, we use heparin, which is heparin and its congeners we use for parenteral purpose, and warfarin is basically the oral anticoagulant. Okay, but today we are going to talk about the next another very important phase or a portion of blood coagulability. Okay, involving platelets. So how does it happen? What is platelet and how does it happen? So basically, platelets aggregation even might start before this coagulation cascade is initiated. Okay, coagulation cascade is nothing but it is just the cascade events of activating these clotting factors, and eventually activating first is activating thrombin. Okay, prothrombin to thrombin, and then thrombin will activate fibrinogen to fibrin. Again, fibrin. What is fibrin? It's a sticky thread of connective tissue which attracts these platelets. Okay, which will attract platelets, and then platelet will attract other platelets, and then in between these platelets will be trapped some white blood cells and red blood cells, and this clot grows bigger and bigger, which will form a big lump of clot, and the contents of that clot is basically platelets aggregating between themselves within the thread with the help of thread of fibrin. Okay, and then in this process, the moving RBC and WBC and all other cells might have been trapped, so it is found inside the clots as well. Okay, and then it is all done when there is injury of blood vessels. You can see. Uh, okay, injury of blood vessels where they can become activated. Okay, platelets first adhere to macromolecules in the subendothelial regions of the injured blood vessels. When the blood vessel is injured, it will secrete the tissue factor. Okay, tissue factor which will uh, first activate the platelets just around it. Okay, then when platelets get activated and get attached to the injured site, then it gets activated itself, and that activation is um, spread over to other adjacent platelets. Okay, so they become one lump over there. So they will recruit other platelets for the to block the injury site. Okay, and these aggregated platelets will form a hemostatic plug primary, and if the blood is not oozing out, it's not going out with great force, then this plug will act as a hemostasis agent. Okay, it will block the bleeding, it will stop the bleeding. And in addition to that is breaching of the blood vessel, in addition to triggering the platelet, it also exposes the tissue factor. I just told you, it exposes two factors: tissue factor and von Willebrand factor. Von Willebrand factor basically will activate these platelets, and tissue factor will activate the intrinsic cascade of blood coagulation that we learned yesterday or day before yesterday. Okay, it initiate the coagulation system. So platelet will support the activation of coagulation system. Okay, how? They will provide their surface as sticky surfaces. Okay, providing the surface onto which floating factors can assemble. They will stick into the platelets surface when it is activated, and then it will convert into activated form. Not only that, it also serves as some of the coagulation factors inside as well. Okay, and it will, when the platelets get activated, then it will start releasing coagulation, few of the coagulation factors as well. So because of this, because it initiates all these intrinsic coagulation factor, the result of is it will form thrombin. I told you what is thrombin. Thrombin is the precursor which will change itself into which will help activate fibrinogen into fibrin, and fibrin is the building block, okay, for that clot. Thrombin then converts fibrinogen into fibrin, which reinforces the platelet aggregation and anchors it to the vessel wall. Okay, so this is how it works. Thrombin changes fibrinogen into fibrin, which is a long thread-like structure, and again it anchors to the breach of the blood vessel, and then it anchors to the clots as well. So this is the basic building infrastructure, like you have reinforcement inside. Okay, like in the concrete blocks, concrete slabs, you have metal reinforcement. This thread of fibrin works as reinforcement for the formation of this aggregate. Okay, so and I just told you that in addition, because it serves as a potent platelet agonist, thrombin also amplifies the platelet aggregation. Again, thrombin not only activates the fibrin and fibrinogen from fibrinogen, it will activate or amplify the speed of activation of platelet as well. Okay, so that is how it all starts, the intrinsic mechanism. So that is not complete, okay guys, because I told you that if this clot doesn't attach itself to the blood vessel wall, then it will fly out into the blood. So if that happens, then that is a very severe condition. It might go and block any blood vessels, and most commonly it will, if it is in veins, you will have pulmonary embolism. If it is in arteries, you will have tissue embolism, including sometimes heart attack and brain attacks as well. Okay, so our system has another thing called plasmin. Okay guys, plasmin, you can see plasmin here. Plasmin is the one which degrades the already formed clots. That is, it causes the lysis of already formed clot. Okay, that is helpful when the wound is healed. Okay, it will dissolve into the blood again. So remember guys, key things in this clotting, all these mechanisms, you can need to remember all those processes, but key things I can give you is prothrombin or thrombin. Thrombin is very important. It is factor 2. Okay, factor 2 will activate factor 1. Factor 1 is fibrin. Okay, so factor 2 is necessary. Without this prothrombin, it will never, fibrinogen is never formed. And I told you previously that it also activates, speeds up the activation of platelets as well. Okay, and then fibrin is itself the building block I just told you. So remember that fibrin is the building block where which accumulates all these platelets to form clots, and plasminogen again this fibrin also, and this the thrombin activates fibrin, and fibrin subsequently slowly this thrombin will rapidly activate fibrin, okay, but fibrin will slowly activate what? It will activate plasminogen into plasmin. Why slowly? I have given these plus signs over here. This over here you can see prothrombin will activate very fast, and fibrin it will form fibrin, which is the building block. Again, that fibrin also will activate plasminogen into plasmin slowly. Why slowly? Because it will take time for the clotting to happen, to healing of the wound to happen. Okay, so after healing starts or the healing is nearly in completion, then only plasminogen is activated, and then it will dissolve the clot safely, blocking the breach in the blood vessel. That is what the function of this coagulability of the drug of the blood is all about. Okay. So giving you this introduction, I want to go into the antiplatelet drug section now. Okay. So antiplatelet drugs. So name itself gives you that it blocks the action of platelets. That means you can even you can imagine by you can formulate how what these drugs will do. Okay, antiplatelets. Function of platelet is to clot the blood. That means antiplatelet drugs will have the tendency to reducing the clotting ability of the blood. So sometimes it might be very good. For example, it will be good when there is abnormal clots forming in your blood, okay, including diseases like cardiovascular accident, heart attacks, ischemic heart diseases, and implantation of foreign substance into the blood, okay, stents and other dilators into the blood vessels where there is angioplasty. You know what angioplasty is? Angioplasty is the correction of the blood vessels where it is blocked or it is the lumen is reduced. You put something foreign inside and then you dilate the blood vessel, okay, by force, and if you keep that stent inside, so that is the prime germination root place for development of clot. Okay, so why? Because this is foreign substance. Platelet might get activated when it gets contact to the foreign substance, and then it may start formation of clot, and then later on that clot might detach itself and go and form diseases, okay, conditions, deadly conditions. So for that prevention of that, we can use this antiplatelet drugs. Okay, so unlike this heparin and warfarin, these drugs are useful in white or arterial thrombus. You remember, you know by now why these arterial thrombus are white and venous thrombus are red. If you don't know, I'll give you in very short. If the clot is formed in venous veins, then it is tending more prone to reddish color because the blood is moving slowly over in the veins, and when the clot is formed, more RBCs will get trapped between these platelets. Unlike in the artery, the RBC and WBC are running very fast, so less chances of getting RBCs getting trapped into the clot. So the clot will be white or brownish in color, grayish, and in the veins there will be reddish in color. Okay, and this aspirin and other antiplatelet drugs are mostly useful for arterial thrombus, and which is very good because all these CVA and tissue necrosis and ischemic heart disease all are because of this white arterial thrombus. Okay, so drugs here you can see is aspirin, not so many drugs, and all I've given you aspirin, ticlopidine, clopidogrel, and prasugrel. These four drugs are the ones which are used most commonly. Okay, and on top of that, the most common drug is aspirin by far, and clopidogrel is the second one, and nowadays prasugrel is being introduced slowly. Okay, so but asteximab, tirofiban, eptifibatide, these are very expensive drugs, very new drug. Even prasugrel is also very new drug. but it is very similar to propitugrade. But Axiximag, these are antibodies, okay, monoclonal antibodies against some receptors. I'll tell you after some time, and these are not very commonly used because of this price as well. And dipyridamole is sometimes used sometimes used in it's a vasodilator. You learn about this drug in ischemic heart disease because there it has some use. Here also it has some use, but the use basically is for vasodilatory action, not for antiplatelet action. But you should understand that this drug has some antiplatelet action, which may not be sufficient for uses of single use, that is alone use. Okay, so this drug will be combined with other drugs to prevent to prevent arterial thrombus. Okay, are you listening to me, guys, or am I offline now? I can't hear any of your voices.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir, we can hear you.
And you can understand me.
Yes,
Huh?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I have a very little animation over here, okay, to make you understand what are these, how this happens, all this. Okay. So this is the microscopic structure of your capillary or a blood vessel. Okay, you can see the upper one is the one membrane, another is the cross section of the blood vessel. You can see cross section. You can cut it longitudinally, not transverse. Okay, and WBC and RBC will run in this direction. Okay, so to make it easier, I will make this lower blood vessel wall disappear. Okay, and this one is only one blood vessel wall. Okay, and you can consider this portion as extravascular area, and this is intravascular area. This is the lumen of these blood vessels where my cursor is. Okay, so this one denotes there is a breach in this wall. Okay, so here you can see, as soon as there is a breach, this collagen is released. VW Wille-Braun factor is released, and tissue factor is released. Okay, and tissue factor will activate the coagulation cascade. Okay, involving activation of these coagulation factors, and VW factor will initiate the aggregation of platelets. And we are interested in that right now. So what happens here is this collagen and VW factor. I didn't show tissue factor here because tissue factor is for this initiation of intrinsic coagulation cascade. So this platelet here, you can see, gets attached immediately with these newly released factors. Okay, and then I'm showing this structure inside. It will make sense in a the platelet itself gets activated. Okay, now it was in resting inactive phase. It was just running around with RBCs and WBCs waiting for something to happen. Okay, now it happened. It is get attached to the VW factor. Now it is getting activated. Okay, so what is it doing now? It will release these eicosanoids, or you can see mediators, neurotransformers like adenosine diphosphate, thromboxane A2, serotonin. All these will be released out of that platelet, increased activated platelet, and those chemicals will go and bind to its respective sites in the another platelet, and then it also binds to the same platelet using fibrinogen in between. You can see. Okay, so these platelets now is aggregated with another one, and this will keep on multiplying 1 to 2, 2 to 4, 4 to 8, 8 to 16, and exponential activation of platelets will be happening there. Again, you can see the newly formed degranulation over there. Okay, so because of by this mechanism, and in addition with this coagulation cascade I was talking about, intrinsic and extrinsic factors, and now they will activate the thrombin. Thrombin will activate fibrinogen into fibrin, and this fibrin will become a thread, which will again bind these newly formed platelets. Okay, so now the previous class was prevention of forming of this fibrinogen, so that platelets would have no place to get aggregated, and now we are talking about how to inhibit this platelet to get aggregated to these sites. Okay, so I have shown you so many things over here. One last thing is that this endothelial cell is able to produce prostaglandin 2. Okay, this prostaglandin has some inhibitory action with platelet aggregation as well. Okay, so intact EC, intact endothelial cell in the blood vessel, which is not broken down, produces PGI, which prevents clotting. Okay, why? Because there is no breach, the blood vessel is intact, so the platelets should not aggregate. Okay, so PGI keeps on monitoring this endothelial cells, keeps on monitoring if there are platelets getting aggregated. If so, then it will produce PGI2 to prevent that. Okay, and as soon as it breaks down, it will produce the opposite things, VW factor and tissue factor, which will initiate this thing. Okay, so now these are why I'm showing you this, because these are the drug targets. You can see the receptor there, GP2A, GP2B, 3A receptor, prostaglandin, ADP, TXA2. All these things are drug targets. The names I have already given in the previous slides. Those drugs will come and bind with these different receptors that I'm going to discuss right now. So what aspirin does is, aspirin, you have learned NSAID already, and in NSAID aspirin was the first drug we have discussed. Okay, and there but we don't use aspirin anymore as antipyretic and anti-inflammatory drug right now, and for that it needs high dose, more than 500 mg dose. Okay, but this aspirin in low dose will inhibit the synthesis of thromboxane A2 that I just showed you in the previous slide. I'll be showing you the same slide again. By irreversible acetylation of COX-1. Okay, you know that this is cyclooxygenase inhibitor from the previous semester, and it will subsequently block the synthesis of thromboxane A2, and you know that this thromboxane A2 is one of the mediators that will activate the adjacent platelets around the platelet. Okay, around the activated platelet. So not only that, not only by blocking inhibiting the synthesis of thromboxane A2, aspirin also inhibits prostaglandin synthesis in the vessel wall. Okay, so there is no prostaglandin synthesis from the vessel wall. That means the coagulability will decrease. Okay, now at low doses of thromboxane A2 formation by platelet is selectively suppressed, whereas higher dose may decrease both thromboxane A2 and prostaglandin 2 production. So basically this prostaglandin production is not the major mechanism of action. We don't get it because if you take 75 mg of aspirin daily, then most probably this PGI synthesis is not reduced. Okay, only thromboxane A2 is reduced, so that it will block all this cascade of not that coagulation cascade, but the events that will form the platelet aggregation. That is why it is called antiplatelet drugs. Okay, so if you get confused, many people may ask me what is the difference of doses between this antiplatelet action and anti-inflammatory and anti-analgesic action. Is that scientists, they have found out the drug is actively blocking thromboxane A2 production from the range of 50 to 320 milligram per day. Okay, more than that it will start having other actions. Okay, the peak action is somewhat if you use 75 mg daily, it somewhat is enough for most of the patients, but if you need, there might be 150 mg tablet as well. Unlike aspirin, there are other NSAIDs like diclofenac, okay, nimesulide, okay, and there are other NSAIDs in the room, but they do not act as antiplatelet drugs, because aspirin is the only one in NSAID which will bind to COX-1 cyclooxygenase 1 enzyme irreversibly. Okay, all the other drugs are reversible, so they have no antiplatelet activity, and this has been shown in many cases. Okay. So I told you that I will come back to this slide. So here you can see thromboxane A2 and prostaglandin being inhibited by aspirin. Okay, so the mechanism of action is quite. Am I back, guys?
Yes, sir.
Am I back?
Yes, sir.
Okay, there was a electricity problem in here. You know what happens in a day. They have now maybe started the generator, but for a few minutes it goes out. Nobody can do anything for that. Okay, and are you able to view my slides, or it's off now? Huh, guys?
We can see.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I was talking about how this works. So I showed you this slide here. This aspirin will block thromboxane A2 and prostacyclin 2. Okay. And I told you that none of the other NSAIDs will have the same effect as aspirin. And I told you that why this aspirin is effectively blocking platelets, but others not. Okay, these are very important questions, and it can come to your Viva question as well. So the next, and I'm not going to go detail on in all the adverse effects of aspirin and other things, because we have already learned that, and you know that aspirin has adverse effects like gastritis, bleeding, duodenal ulcers, okay, and others. But here, one of the adverse effect we need is bleeding. All the drugs here will have one adverse effect, that is bleeding. It will reduce the functionality of clotting. Where we need that, we have the therapeutic effect. But in case there is a person who is using antiplatelet drugs for a long period of time, and if he has some hemorrhage from some places, then the chance of getting hemostasis is less. Okay, why? Because it promotes bleeding. So one of the adverse effects of aspirin is bleeding. Now I'm going to go to this other group of drug. I'm using this all three drugs, ticlopidine, clopidogrel, and prasugrel, in the same chapter topic, same slide. Why? Because all these are the receptors that block uh, the ADP receptor. Okay, ADP is adenosine diphosphate. I showed you in the previous slide as well. I'll come to that slide again. And ADP binds to a receptor which is a purine receptor, which is called P2Y receptor, and it is there inside the platelet as well. And because ticlopidine, clopidogrel, and prasugrel, all these drugs will block this P2Y receptor, ADP will have nowhere to act. Okay, that means ADP, again, if no function of ADP will be there, so again it will prohibit, or it will prevent the aggregation of platelets. I'll show you the figure in the coming slides also. Okay, unlike NSAIDs or aspirin, it will have no effect on prostaglandin metabolism, guys. No effect whatsoever in prostaglandin. That means thromboxane E2 and prostaglandin release. It has nothing to do. But the effect is very similar to aspirin. Do you know what this? Why is this so important? You can remember your first year, first term, that if two drugs have the same effect and with different mechanisms of action, then they will most probably have a synergistic action. Okay, they will do the same thing. They will do the same thing, that they will inhibit the aggregation of platelet. Aspirin and these drugs will do the same thing, but the mechanism is one will block thromboxane A2, another one will block the activity of adenosine diphosphate. Okay, and both of them will do the same thing. But if both of them are blocked at once, that means if you use aspirin and clopidogrel as at once, they will have very high efficacy. Okay, the effect will be exponentially added. It is supra additive synergistic action. Okay. So, used to prevent thrombosis in patient undergoing placement of coronary stents and angioplasty. Basically, all those indications of all those drugs here are the same. I'll come to that in the end of the class. What are those things? Okay, that where are the indications of this drug? And side effect is common. Non-fatal ones are common, like diarrhea, vomiting, abdominal pain, headache, tinnitus, and bleeding. To some extent, it is safe, but people with duodenal ulcers and bleeding ulcers somewhere with hemorrhages, cardiovascular disorders, hemorrhagic CVAs, in those cases, we don't use this drug. These are contraindicated. And very rarely, neutropenia and thrombocytopenia, and it can produce jaundice. And this has been reported many times, but thankfully, this is very rare. Okay, one in thousands. And ticlopidin nowadays is replaced by clopidogrel and prasugrel. Okay, why? Because of this adverse effect is far lesser with clopidogrel and prasugrel. That is why nowadays ticlopidin is now being replaced. Okay. So what is this clopidogrel and prasugrel? Prasugrel is the newest addition. Clopidogrel is a relatively old drug. Both of them are prodrugs, not ticlopidin. Okay, clopidogrel and prasugrel, they get absorbed from the intestines, and they get the viability is also not very high, and whatever is absorbed, whatever reaches the liver, it will get converted into active drugs. Okay, but clopidogrel is clumsy with this. It's only 15% of that is been absorbed, converted to be an active drug, but prasugrel is converted 100%. Okay, that is why prasugrel needs very less amount of drug if you compare to it with clopidogrel. In fact, prasugrel has one disadvantage upon it, is it is more potent. Why it is more potent? It needs less amount of drug to reach the same level of action with clopidogrel. Okay, not only that, prasugrel is different with clopidogrel, that it binds with that receptor. I told about is purine receptor, P2Y receptor, irreversibly. That means until and unless that platelets is apoptosis happens, it dies away. I think it's 70 to 80 days. I think platelets, it dies off. New platelet arrive, then only the receptor is active. Otherwise, once it is joined with this prasugrel, the effect doesn't come back. Okay, that is why even if you stop the drug, the effect of the drug will continue after you stop the drug for some time. Okay, so I just already told you that synergistic and or additive effects with aspirin, because the same type of problems effect is there, but the mechanism is slightly different. So it will have some synergistic action with aspirin. And I just told you in the previous slide as well that clopidogrel and prasugrel, they have largely replaced ticlopidin. Ticlopidin is nowadays not very commonly used. And why? Because of the incidences of adverse effects with clopidogrel is less. Okay. And another thing is that generally we combine, in some cases, if we combine two antiplatelet drugs will combine aspirin and clopidogrel. Okay, and this one clopidogrel is much more comfortable with aspirin. Okay, ticlopidine and aspirin, they don't like each other. The adverse effects will add up. Okay, but with clopidogrel, the adverse effects do not add up. So where is this working? You can see these receptors. I told you that this thromboxane A2 is blocked by aspirin, but I didn't got ADP. Why? Because it is not that clopidogrel and ticlopidine and prasugrel will block ADP itself. ADP will be there, but the site of its activation here is P2Y receptor inside here is blocked. Okay, then ADP will have no place to act. Okay, that is how it works. Now you can see why it is synergistic with aspirin, because ADP as well as thromboxane A2 both are omitted from this event, which will reduce the platelet activating activity to minimum if you use both of these drugs. Okay, and then it might have. Since these two are supraadditive synergistic action, the adverse effects like bleeding might increase. Okay, this is the problem. In sometimes if you combine clopid and aspirin, then there will be chances of getting bleeding high. Okay. Similarly, we have the third group of drug that will block glycoprotein 2B3A receptor. Okay, just these receptor, you can see this receptor, glycoprotein 2B3A receptor. Basically, what are these receptors are basically inactive. Okay, they are nothing, they just remain there if this platelet is in inactive form. Okay, inactive in resting platelet, but it is activated when the platelet is activated by either collagen, I just told you, or thrombin, or thromboxane A2, or any of the platelet activators. If it gets activated, then only GP2B3A receptor is also activated. Now, if it is activated, then what happens? It will be more receptive for Willebrand factor, and more importantly, it will be more receptor for fibrinogen, guys. What is fibrinogen? Sorry, I can say fibrin. Okay, not fibrinogen, fibrin. Sorry, because fibrinogen is the precursor. Fibrin gets attached to the receptors. Platelets. So fibrin gets more affiliated or more attached with the platelets in presence of this drug. Okay, of activation of GP2B3A receptor. Okay. So what happens here is GP2B3A receptor. Then I have shown this fibrin here, that fibrin is getting attached to this GP2B3A receptor. You can see in this figure. So this thing will not happen, guys. That means again this will have the antiplatelet action, but with different mechanism of action with aspirin as well as clopidogrel. That means if you add all these three drugs again, that we don't do, right, guys? This is not very dangerous because it will create bleeding, lots of bleeding. But if we add all these three drugs, it will have supraadditive effect again. Okay. So are you able to hear me, guys?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. You are able to understand me, na?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So blockade of this GP2B3A receptor, the drugs are here abciximab, eptifibatide, and tirofiban. Okay, these drugs, except tirofiban, all these these abciximab and eptifibatide are antibodies. Okay, produced in vitro, monoclonal antibodies cloned from one antibody. Okay, and that antibody is acting against that GP2B3A receptor. Okay, that means these GP2B3A receptors will be blocked, made inactive. That means this ability of this platelet to get attached with fibrin is now gone. Okay, that means it will effectively have the action of antiplatelet drug. Okay. And astetrimab is basically the first drug to be introduced in this group of drug, and later on eftifibatide is joined and tirofiban is joined. Eftifibatide is made exactly like astetrimab by cloning the antibodies, but tirofiban is not even an antibody, guys. It is a substance which goes and attaches itself with the GP2B3A receptor and then blocks it. But the mechanism is fully not understood fully. Okay, they know okay, this happens, but how? They are even this is the place where you can have further studies. Okay. So you can see now this eftilagimab, eftifibatide, and tirofiban. These drugs are blocking effectively this GP2B3A receptor. Okay. Side effect, of course, hemorrhage, bleeding will be there with all those. Thrombocytopenia is there also with this also, and arrhythmia is rare, but constipation is more common with this drug. The problem with this drug is that this is quite expensive. Okay, and the people from this part of the world they are not able to afford. Okay, only few people can afford, so it is not commonly used, but still these drugs are available and can be used. And since the effectiveness is not vast difference with this clopidogrel and aspirin, we still use aspirin adequately okay, and they work quite well. We don't need to use these expensive drugs because they are also as effective. Okay, and in many cases they might be more safe sometimes. The last drug we are talking about is dipyridamole. Okay, dipyridamole, we'll talk about dipyridamole. I reminded you last time before in the initial of this class. It is a vasodilator, and you talked about this in the CVS in ischemic heart disease class. So what is this? It blocks phosphodiesterase enzyme. Okay, what is phosphodiesterase enzyme? If you remember, I gave you a whole list of phosphodiesterase enzyme blocking drugs. These are in respiratory system. You can see theophylline, euphyllin, coffee, caffeine, sildenafil, which is used for Viagra, which is used for erectile dysfunction, and some drugs, even vasodilator like a few of the other drugs. They are phosphodiesterase inhibitor, which will break down cyclic AMP, and cyclic AMP, if it is increased inside the cell, then it will the cell might get polarized, which can give you the vasodilatory or relaxation of the smooth muscles. So this can vasodilatory action to some extent works inside the platelet as well. So it can block the platelet aggregation response to ADP, but it is not very effective drug, and it works via ADP. Okay, by itself it doesn't work. So it is not used alone, guys. And if it is perfectly indicated, if it is needed, then it is used with combination with aspirin or warfarin, guys. Otherwise, we don't use this dipyridamole separately. Okay. So uses of antiplatelet drugs, all antiplatelet drugs. Okay, guys. Here I can give you these uses. Coronary artery disease. Coronary artery disease where there is atherosclerotic patches, and there is tendency of getting platelets attached to that, and there is some restriction of blood flow in your heart. That is called ischemic heart disease. And unstable angina, MI, prevention of MI. Once you have had a patient had an MI, then to prevent reinfarction, we can use these drugs so that the already formed, the newly forming clots will stop building up. Okay, and in cerebrovascular disease. And in cerebrovascular disease, you should be very careful because in CVA, cerebrovascular disease, there are two types. One is ischemic CVA, another one is hemorrhagic CVA. Okay, when the blood vessels of your brain bursts and then releases blood out into the brain tissue, that is hemorrhagic CVA. In this case, if you give this drug, it is contraindicated. It will worsen the case because it will inhibit the formation of clot, which will promote bleeding inside. Okay, so contraindication is hemorrhagic CVA, but in ischemic CVA you should use it. That is why if some person with neurological symptoms comes to you in your clinic, then or in emergency department, then you have to differentiate if this is ischemic or if this is hemorrhagic. And one of the easy way to differentiate is CT scan. Otherwise, the symptoms will be quite similar. Okay, by clinical symptoms, it's very difficult to differentiate. So we have to keep in mind if there is MI, heart disease, you can use these drugs, but in CVA, it should be judicially chosen. Okay. In coronary bypass implants, for treatment of MIs after angioplasty, you are inserting some stent inside the blood vessel, not only in heart but in kidneys, not only in kidneys, even in joints and other places. If you are using in heart valves, okay, external implants anywhere where there is blood, then you have to use these types of anticoagulants, antiplatelet drugs to prevent, and not anticoagulants, okay, antiplatelet drugs to prevent formation of clots and clogging the blood vessels. Prosthetic heart valves and at-rest shunts, I just told you about that. And in venous thromboembolism, all the indications of heparin and warfarin, guys, okay, last class, they are all can be used in those cases as well, but only secondary to anticoagulants, heparin and warfarin. If heparin and warfarin are contraindicated, not available, or any reasons that you are not able to use those drugs, in these cases, venous thromboembolism, we can still use antiplatelet drugs for that. So this much for today, guys. I had some. What is the time? Time is almost off. So I have some questions, MCQs, and other reminder and revision questions for you. But since the time is not enough, and we have another class tomorrow for antiplatelet drugs, we'll be discussing, and your questions and answers will be answered. Questions will be answered tomorrow. Please prepare, go through the books. I'll give you this learning material. I have another class in the evening as well, na? Oh yeah, in the evening I have. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about that in the evening today. I think 3:15 we have another class, and we'll meet in that class. Okay, guys?
Okay, sir.
Okay, then we'll continue this class. We'll continue this class in the next period, 3:15. I'll see you then. Bye bye.
Bye bye,
Thank you,
sir.
sir. Bye.
Bye bye, sir.
Bye bye.